Hi there. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is. As always, happy whatever day it is, and welcome. I'm Larry Erickson. This is the Erickson Report. On the evening of January 21st, a mass shooting in Monterey Park, California, left 11 dead and 9 wounded. 3 days later, January 24th, 2 more shootings, those in Half Moon Bay, California, left 7 dead and 1 wounded. Mass shootings are defined by gunarchive.org as at least 4 people shot in a single incident, not counting the shooter. Mass murders are when there are multiple people killed in one incident, again, not counting the shooter. By that standard, through January 24th of this year, there had already been 40 mass shootings and 6 mass murders in the United States this year. 40 mass shootings, 6 mass murders in just over 3 weeks. I said last time that one of the things I wanted to talk about, because I thought it would be a continuing issue over the course of the year, one of those is guns. And next show, we are definitely going to be spending some time on that topic. But this time, we begin by noting that January 22nd marked the 50th anniversary of the Roe v.Wade decision, and the first such anniversary without it. Years of fanaticism, years of lies about abortion and the people who got them, and particularly years of lies by Supreme Court nominees who kept insisting that Roe is settled law, even though they know that the Supreme Court can overrule and overturn such settled law, and perhaps most egregiously, years of failure by Democrats to call those nominees out on their lies and evasion, have left us at a point where, for the first time in U.S. history, a recognized right has been stripped away. So we start this time by noting some recent headlines on this topic. For example, Alabama has a near total abortion ban, which targets those who provide abortions but exempts the people who get abortions from being prosecuted. That actually creates a loophole for those who want abortions, because you could do a self-medicated, like chemically induced abortion. Well, Alabama State Attorney General Steve Marshall doesn't like the idea that people actually have options. So 2 weeks ago, his office issued a statement that those people who use an abortifacient, that is something that will induce an abortion, could be charged for a crime under a state chemical endangerment law. Now, this law was originally created to protect children from exposure to chemicals and fumes from home meth labs. But over time, it's been expanded to apply to pregnant people who took any drugs during pregnancy or exposed the fetus to drugs. And now they wanted to expand it further, making the term drugs, which until now has referred to illegal drugs, refer to legal ones that the fanatics in the Alabama government don't like. Meanwhile, another case. In floor debate on the Minnesota legislature on January 11th, State Senator Bill Leski illustrated the appalling lack of understanding of the issue so common among the men making these laws. There's a method of doing an abortion called a dilation and extraction, or DNX, which involves dilating the pregnant person's cervix and then drawing the fetus out through the birth canal. In 1995, the fanatics at the National Right to Life Committee dubbed this partial birth abortion, a medically meaningless and deliberately misleading term which the fanatics have used ever since. Okay, in floor debate on a related measure, Senator Liskey said, quoting, "We have born alive individuals and we must protect the born alive. In this case, a partial birth abortion. The child is in part born alive." In other words, Leski thinks that this aborted fetus is partly alive. He didn't specify which part he was referring to. Frankly, this would deserve a clown award just for utter stupidity, if it weren't so serious and the stupidity of this sort so common among his ilk. If that's not enough for you, states are even looking to prosecute people simply for providing publicly available, entirely legal options for people who want to obtain an abortion but who live in a state where those rights are being destroyed. Even just telling someone, well, you know, you could go to this neighboring state and get it done legally there would become a crime, aiding and abetting a crime, and, you know, free speech be damned. That's not a joke. This is no exaggeration. South Carolina legislature is now considering legislation to do exactly that, to make offering publicly available legal information on legal activities into a crime, based on draft legislation from the fanatics, again, at the National Right to Life Committee, legislation they are trying to get introduced in multiple states. And Mississippi is currently investigating a group called Mayday Health over a billboard advertising a website which provided some of that same sort of public information. And this doesn't even touch on the intensified campaigns to restrict or even block access to birth control, because as we've told you all along, overturning Roe was not the goal. That was just a step on the road to the creation of their vision of the Republic of Gilead. And the efforts are not limited to the state level. After screeching for decades that the issue of abortion should be returned to the states, now that they've got that, now they're looking for federal legislation to limit abortion after 15 weeks, or to ban it after 15 weeks, and to block states that are trying to preserve access to reproductive health from being able to do so. Return it to the states was just another lie. Now, not all the news on this is bad, of course, not all of it. I mentioned before suits in Indiana and Kentucky, for example, and 3 other states, arguing that abortion restrictions in those states are a violation of the plaintiff's religious freedom, taking the recent practice of the fanatics to turn every attempt to combat bigotry into a First Amendment violation and turning that to a good end. The latest example here is a challenge to Missouri's ban filed on January 19th by a group of 11 religious leaders of different faiths who wrote that during debate on the bill, several lawmakers, including the bill's primary sponsor, specifically invoked their religious beliefs in justifying the bill. This marks a clear violation not only of church-state separation, but also of the Missouri state constitution. Look, the moment we are at here on this, the moment we are at is one where every aspect of reproductive health, from birth control through postnatal care, is under attack, and the fanatics do seem ascendant. But it's a moment that's arisen in part because, despite the signs for too many among us, including those most directly affected, the loss of those rights didn't seem real until the Dobbs decision actually came down. But that resistance is alive, it is growing, and hopefully it will continue to grow. As for our opponents, you fanatics who proclaim your freedom but deny it to others, who proclaim love for the fetus but deny it to the mother, who claim to pursue justice but deny it to your victims, well, the Gospel of Matthew had the words for you. You who are the embodiment of the truism that for the right wing, the right to life begins at conception and ends at birth. Enjoy your time while you have it, because in the long run, we will not let you win. All right, next up, I'm going to spend some time on another issue that will remain important over the year, that being health care. But in this case, I'm going to talk about a specific aspect of that issue, 2 programs relating to Medicare, one of which you probably heard of, and the other of which you might not have unless it affected you directly. The first of these, then, is Medicare Advantage. If you are older, that is of Medicare age, you may even be in one of these programs. Almost half of us are. I am, in fact. I mean, for me personally, there was a Medicare Advantage program that seemed to be the best option that I had. And if you are a senior in overall good health, as I am, it may well be the best option for you as an individual, too. But this is a scam, it's a cheat, it's a ripoff, not necessarily of the people in the program, but of the taxpayers, of the public as a whole. Now, who says so? Well, among others, Wendell Potter, former vice president for corporate communications at insurance giant Cigna, who helped design the PR campaign that helped convince Congress to go along with the scheme. He now says, quoting him, "Medicare Advantage is a money-making scam. I should know. I helped sell it." Okay, the first thing to know here is that Medicare Advantage is not Medicare. It is a separate, corporate health insurance industry program established under Medicare Part C, which was designed to allow for those kind of options. And it stands bluntly as a step on a road to a total privatization, that is, the destruction of Medicare. All right, here's how Medicare Advantage works. Insurance corporations, unlike real Medicare, don't deal on a person-by-person, case-by-case basis. Instead, every year, Advantage providers provide the federal government with an aggregate risk score for all of their customers, and they are paid a lump sum based on that score. This is done under the notion that being private capitalist organizations, they'd be more efficient than any government agency could possibly be, and so they would save taxpayers money. Well, the fact is it doesn't, as multiple audits have shown. Instead, it has become an enormous cash cow for the corporations, in large part because of the way they have rigged the system of risk scoring in order to maximize their profits. See, a risk score is a measure of how much the corporation thinks you might cost them in benefit payouts over the course of the year. Simply put, the sicker you are, the higher your score. And the higher your score, the more money it gets from the federal government, which gives the corporation an obvious incentive to try to inflate those scores. Here, that's how this kind of thing can happen. And I'm going to use myself as an example. All right? Now, again, I'm in overall good health. But, you know, I am getting older. I'm in my 70s, and as folks get older, issues can arise just in the natural process of aging. For example, I've developed a tremor in my left hand, okay? Tremors sometimes happen to older folks. Now, for me, it's an annoyance. It is an annoyance, particularly because I'm left-handed. So it can make typing a hassle sometimes, or some things a problem. I sometimes have difficulty writing things down because, yes, I do still write in cursive sometimes. So it is an annoyance. But the important point here is that I have had a neurological exam and it was negative. This is what's called an essential tremor, which means it just is. There is no neurological impairment, no neurological issue involved here. But unfortunately, under my medical records, under diagnoses, it just says hand tremor. It doesn't say essential hand tremor, which means that even in spite of that exam, an insurance company could look at, well, hand tremor, well, that still could be neurological involvement. So, you know, we got to up his score. I've had surgery on both shoulders due to osteoarthritis. Now, even though there has been no related issue before or after that required any medical intervention whatsoever, the company could still say, well, you know, got that history. He could need, you know, he could have arthritis other places and need more surgery, up his score. In the past, I've had some digestive issues. Again, it was an annoyance. It was not something that ever impacted my normal day-to-day life. It was an annoyance. But on my list of diagnoses, it's listed as irritable bowel syndrome. And a company can look at that and go, oh, that's serious. It got to up his score. So you can take someone like me in general good health and easily present them as being much sicker than they actually are, depending upon how you want to interpret things. The whole thing, and there's one other thing about this. This kind of risk score inflation, this is exactly what's been happening. It's exactly what's been happening. So much so that the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, the CMS as it's called, recently estimated that, I'm going to quote them, net overpayments to Medicare Advantage plans by unconfirmed medical diagnoses totaled $11.4 billion in fiscal 2022 alone. And there's one more thing. And this is the key. The program is designed such that once you're in it, you're pretty much stuck. There are significant financial barriers to switching to real Medicare, making it as a practical matter for a lot of us who are in it, switching is impossible as a practical matter. The whole thing is, as Tom Hartman called it, a Trojan horse to privatize Medicare. And it's one that should be shut down now. Oh, and if you're on traditional Medicare, if you're on like real Medicare, you're still being thrown into the clutches of grasping insurance companies. This is that other program, the one you may not have heard about. It was set up under Tweety Pie under the name Direct Contracting Entities. So it amounts to a for-profit corporation acting as a benefits manager contracted by Medicare to sit between you and the service provider. That is, instead of Medicare in that space dealing with claims in and benefit payments out, there is a private corporation contracted to do that. Now, DCEs are paid monthly by the CMS. They're paid to cover a specified portion of a patient's medical care, and they get to pocket anything they don't spend on that care, which clearly gives these corporations an incentive to skimp on Medicare patients, to find ways to deny claims, or to only approve the cheapest method of treatment, even if a more expensive one is called for. This began as a pilot program and was deliberately designed with the idea of being another step to privatizing Medicare and another way to rip off the public for the benefit of private corporations, even as it was sold with the traditional mantra of private enterprise efficiency. Virtually any company can apply to be a DCE, including investor-backed startups, people that may have no prior experience in insurance and healthcare and medicine. There are Wall Street types, insurance corporations already doing Medicare Advantage plans. And if you're on Medicare, you can be assigned to one of these profit-hungry outfits without your approval or even your knowledge. Okay, but that wasn't a Tweety Pie, right? That wasn't a Tweety Pie. We have a Democrat in there now in the White House. This has all been taken care of, right? Yeah, sure. Not only is the Biden administration expanding the program, or continuing the program, the CMS announced in January that it's being expanded significantly with the goal of making this universal, having all Medicare recipients dealing with these kind of corporations by 2030. But the only thing Biden did was rebrand the program as ACO Health, Accountable Care Organization Realizing Equity, Access, and Community Health. Because turning over administration of our health insurance claims to private corporations whose goal is, always remember, to maximize their profits, increases accountability somehow. Bear in mind, in fact, that the $650 million in Medicare Advantage overcharges that were found by federal audit back in 2013 and 2014 still have not been recovered from the companies that claimed them. Medicare, along with Social Security in general, are the most popular, most successful federal programs in U.S. history, and the right wing and the reactionaries hate them for precisely that reason and have been wanting to shut them down from day one. We cannot let them succeed. And all this, by the way, raises a very interesting question, okay? If we as a people, through taxes, can in these programs pay, as is what's happening now, if we can pay for Medicare, plus Medicaid, plus corporate profit, plus the illegal overcharges, how can anybody actually say that we can't afford a national health care plan? Now, by the way, I'm going to actually directly address the resurgent attacks on Social Security, including the new proposals for a renewed cat food commission next time, okay? But for now, we're taking a break. And we are back with our regular feature, the much anticipated return of 2 weeks of stupid clowns and outrages. We're starting as usual with the clowns, of which we have 3 this time. First, we have Gopper Representative Jim Banks of Indiana, who has vowed to start an anti-woke caucus to fight the so-called woke agenda to be found in Congress. He said that the move would help to crush the doctrine of wokeness, which is necessary because he whined in what is probably the most unintentionally revealing statement you have heard in quite some time. He said, "We no longer live in normal America, but rather under a creeping tyranny." Geez, and they call us snowflakes. He actually should call it the Send in the Clowns Caucus because, you know, don't bother, they're here. All right, next up. 2 infamous anti-LGBTQ plus preachers, each of whom was called for gay people to be executed, want their male followers to give up beer. Stephen Anderson, founder of the New Independent Fundamentalist Baptist Movement and pastor at the Faithful Word Baptist Church in Tempe, Arizona, and Jonathan Shelley of the Steadfast Baptist Church in Watauga, Texas, both posted unhinged rants about how drinking beer is too risky for men. Why? Well, because beer has hops. What? You see, hops contain a minute quantity of a phytoestrogen mimicker. And so, according to our two clowns, drinking beer will make you effeminate. Oh my, how horrible. Now that, friends, is champion-level clown and paranoia. Last up, COP, or COP, Conference of Parties, is an annual multinational confab to see which nation has the best PR campaign to claim it really, really, really does, we really mean it this time, want to address preventing climate change. COP28 is to take place in Dubai in November. Our clown here is U.S. climate envoy John Kerry, who expressed his approval of the selection of Sultan Al Jaber, the CEO of the Abu Dhabi National Oil Company, to preside over the meeting. In expressing his approval of Al Jaber, Kerry cited a recent speech the guy gave, which is not really a convincing argument because in that very speech, Al Jaber talked about how COP should, quote, get it done across mitigation, adaptation, finance, and loss and damage, which is less about doing anything about climate change than it is learning to live with it. And the company he heads plans to increase its output of crude oil. Activists rightly equated Al Jaber's choice to asking arms dealers to chair peace talks. With John Kerry's approval, the act of a clown. All right, turning to the outrages, we have one that can be summed up in a single word: Florida. In fact, there's so much material here that I am going to have to focus on just one recent illustration. The College Board has for several years been developing an AP, an advanced placement course for high school students on African American studies. And as part of the process, they send the course out to various places around the country to get, input and feedback. Unfortunately for the College Board, one of the places they chose was Florida. The administration of Governor Ron DeSantis, seen here showing how he deals with reality, rejected the program entirely, saying the content of this course is contrary to Florida law and significantly lacks educational value. Having gotten his Don't Say Gay bill and his Stop Woke Act through a legislature dominated by drooling, mouth-breathing acolytes, he and they have gotten to the point where they're not even pretending anymore. What they want, what they're after, is to totally bury any discussion of discrimination against LGBTQ plus people, any discrimination against Black, Indigenous, or people of color, any discussion of homophobia or transphobia or racism. They want ultimately to make it illegal, to make it a crime, to even acknowledge the existence of bigotry and their fiefdom. They're not even pretending this anymore. In fact, they'll as much as openly admit it. The end of December, there was a hearing in a suit brought by Hillsborough County, Florida State Attorney Andrew Warren. He'd been suspended by DeSantis for signing a pledge to not prosecute abortion-related crimes. Warren's attorney noted that the governor, who gleefully declared Florida is where woke goes to die when he was reelected, had called Warren a woke ideologue in announcing the suspension. And so the attorney asked some state officials, what does woke mean? The answer we got was that woke is, quoting the witness, the belief that there are systemic injustices in American society and the need to address them. So by their own words, what they're against is even admitting to the existence of, much less doing anything about, systemic injustice. The witness even said that DeSantis thinks that no such systemic injustices exist. Which means that Ron DeSantis, seen here fingering the hole where the screw came loose, is exactly what you thought all along. He's a garden variety ignoramus, racist, and bigot. He's Lester Maddox with a good speechwriter instead of a pickaxe handle. Look it up. Moreover, DeSantis is a plain old schoolyard bully, another trait he shares with Maddox, using all his powers, including those given him by his legislative minions for just this purpose, to attack and punish anyone who crosses or displeases him. Andrew Warren was one, but he was hardly the first. And I have to tell you, one of the reasons bullies get away with as much as they do is because too many people are unwilling to just say, screw you. As an example, consider the NHL. The league itself estimates that its full-time workforce is 84% non-Hispanic white. And a couple of years ago, USA Today said that 97% of actual players are white. Now, the league has been making some efforts, seemingly sincere ones, to have more diversity both on the ice and off it. As part of that, it scheduled what it called a Pathway to Hockey for February 2nd in Fort Lauderdale. It sought participants who were, quoting, female, black, Asian/Pacific Islander, Hispanic/Latino, indigenous, LGBTQIA+, or a person with a disability. Veterans are also welcome and encouraged to attend. In response, DeSantis issued a statement called that discrimination against a politically unpopular demographic, in other words, white people, and the league should remove and denounce this announcement. Within hours, instead of telling this spoiled brat, buzz off, the league had completely capitulated, deleting the posting, saying it was not accurate and saying, oh my, yes, white people, please do come. This is not going to help or protect them in the future. They damn well know it, or should have known it. They're fools if they didn't. And there's one last thing on Florida. There's a lot more, but for now, time is fleeting. When I quoted DeSantis' office as rejecting the College Board AP program because the content of this course is contrary to Florida law, they didn't quite say that. The actual quote is that it is inexplicably contrary to Florida law. What the hell does that mean? Inexplicable means incapable of being explained, which means that if it means anything at all, this statement means this course is against the law, but we are incapable of explaining how or why, which doesn't give you a lot of confidence in their intellectual standing to evaluate any academic program. But don't worry, nearly 2 weeks later, DeSantis, senior having just learned he shares oxygen with drag queens, finally managed to come up with a reason. As part of this avowedly interdisciplinary examination of African American history and experience, it has a section on queer theory, that is, the history and experience of LGBTQ+ Black Americans. So according to DeSantis himself, any discussion of the experience of LGBTQ+ people, any acknowledgement of their existence in any context is illegal in Florida schools. There is no other rational interpretation for this. The state government of Florida is monstrous, it is despicable, it is frightening, and it is an outrage. But all this has accomplished one thing. Those of us who were wondering if DeSantis is more of an anti-LGBTQ bigot or more of a racist, now has some reason to think it's the former, but only by a little. That's it. We're out of here. We will see you in 2 weeks. In the meantime, you always have the best 2 weeks you possibly can. And as always, peace.